So you've probably heard the buzz about tariff checks, right? It's this really bold idea that promises to put a couple $1,000s directly into the pockets of Americans. Today, we're going to break down exactly what it is, how it's supposed to work, and, the big question, do the numbers actually add up?
Okay, so let's rewind a bit. Where did this whole thing even come from? Well, the idea basically exploded into the national conversation on November 9th, 2025. It all started with a single promise that, let me tell you, immediately got everyone talking.
And there it is. This one post on Truth Social laid out the entire proposal. A $2,000 dividend for most Americans. This single sentence sent pretty much everyone, economists, politicians, you name it, scrambling to figure out what this could actually mean for the country and for their own wallets. So let's get into the nitty-gritty here. What exactly is a tariff check? It's really all about following a specific trail of money, from the cargo ships at the docks all the way to your bank account.
At its absolute core, it's a form of redistribution. You know how the government collects taxes on stuff that's imported into the country? Well, those are tariffs. The idea here is to take that money, turn around, and give a piece of it directly back to the citizens. It's all part of this bigger idea that tariffs can help protect American jobs, and that the money from those tariffs should then be shared with the people. You can almost think of it like a dividend that the country pays out from its income on imports. On paper, the whole process seems pretty straightforward. Step 1, companies that import foreign goods pay the tariffs. Step 2, Uncle Sam collects all that money. Step 3, the government sets aside a chunk of those funds for these payments. And Step 4, the checks get sent out directly to the people. But as we're about to see, the real complexity isn't really in the how, it's in the how much. Of course, an economic idea this big comes with a huge debate. You've got supporters who think it's a brilliant move, and then you've got critics who are warning about some pretty serious risks. So let's take a look at the arguments on both sides. So on one hand, supporters see this as a total win-win. They argue it helps offset the higher prices you might pay because of tariffs, so it's kind of like direct relief. Plus, let's be honest, it's a really popular idea politically, and it's funded by money that's already coming in, not new taxes or debt. But critics are waving some major red flags. They're worried that pumping hundreds of billions of dollars into the economy could just supercharge inflation. They also talk about something called deadweight loss, which is just an economist's way of saying that tariffs can make the whole economy less efficient. And finally, relying on tariff money is risky business because it can jump all over the place depending on global trade, especially if other countries decide to hit back with their own tariffs.
All right, so we've heard the arguments, but here's the million-dollar question. Or maybe I should say the $600 billion question. Is this plan even financially possible? Can the math actually work? Let's do a little reality check on the numbers.
To really get our heads around this, we have to start with the first part of the equation. How much money is the government actually collecting from tariffs right now? Well, according to the latest government data, the U.S. has collected about $215 billion in tariff revenues so far in 2025. Now, to be fair, some in the administration project that this number could eventually grow to over $500 billion a year, but for right now, $215 billion is the real number we have to work with. Now let's look at the other side of the ledger. $2,000 per person sounds pretty great, doesn't it? But what's the actual price tag for a payout that big? Budget analysts have been crunching the numbers, and the estimated cost is, well, it's staggering. To send a $2,000 check to most Americans, including kids, would cost somewhere around $600 billion. And this chart right here just illustrates the central challenge perfectly. As you can see, there is a massive gap between the $215 billion in revenue being collected and the $600 billion estimated cost of the program. That shortfall is the biggest question mark hanging over this entire proposal. So, even with that huge fiscal gap, what would it actually take to make this thing happen? Let's take a look at the road ahead, the potential timeline, and all the major hurdles standing in the way. Administration officials have said they're aiming for the middle of 2026 to start sending out payments. And you can't help but notice, that timeline would place those checks right in people's mailboxes just a few months before some very critical midterm elections. But getting there is not going to be easy. This proposal faces a whole gauntlet of major roadblocks. It would need a brand new law passed by Congress, where some Republicans are already openly skeptical. The legality of the tariffs themselves might even end up at the Supreme Court. Economists would have to be incredibly careful to design the program to avoid worsening inflation. And on top of all that, there's a fierce debate about whether this money should even be used for checks at all, or if it should go toward paying down the national debt instead.
So after looking at the promise, the process, and all the problems, we're left with one final question. Is the tariff check a revolutionary economic lifeline for working families, a new way to share the wealth from global trade? Or is it a political long shot, a promise that's grounded more in popular appeal than in actual fiscal reality? That right there is the question at the very heart of this debate.